The day was already turning out to be one of the hottest the summer had seen when I first laid eyes on him. He walked slowly, thumb outstretched, as the sun drenched street baked with humidity paraded steaming mirages around his muscular figure. My foot slightly lifted from the accelerator, buying me time before I was to pass, giving the opportunity to take in the spectacle that I would later learn to be Ash. He had a sun kissed complexion, slim physique, and stood fairly at 5'11". His jet black hair glistened in the sun, and sweat and perspiration had all but wielded his blue jeans and black cotton shirt to him, revealing a nicely sculpted, well defined muscular torso. As I approached him, he turned and my gaze briefly met his gray pupils. I mouthed the word sorry as I passed him, intent on sticking firmly to my daily routine of stopping for gas and coffee before I headed into work. Never in a million years would I dare pick up a hitchhiker, especially one so distracting. I could see my mother swoon at the thought while my father recited the Dahmers and Mansons that hitchhike as their MO. I smiled to myself as I turned into the only gas station in the town. With a population of about 1,500, the town council deemed it unnecessary to support building another. Our only saving grace was the freshly erected Starbucks that sat in the middle of town, a beacon of light to all suffering the angst of living in a place a short 50 miles from the grand lights of Las Vegas. Maybe this scarcity was an attempt to hold on to a time gone by, a picturesque antique of yesteryear. Hmm. The serene desert backdrop gave an old town feel, and is what decisively made my final decision to lay down roots and teach at the College of Arts, after earning my own PhD in the bowels of Sin City itself. I placed my Tacoma in park and quickly jostled into the station, and ever mindful that my first class began in about 30 minutes. "Morning, Abby," I said to the teenage clerk behind the counter. A slight nod and a quick wave was her reply as her eyes steadfastly remained on whatever had her attention on the other side of the linoleum partition. After pouring my daily source of caffeine, I leaned in closer against the counter and caught a glimpse of college applications. I really hope that that's one of our I really hope that one of those is to our prestigious institutions. Abby, you know that your mother would just die if you were to go any further. I chided with a smirk. She returned an equally mocking look as she rolled her eyes. "I wish I could, Miss Rochelle. I'm about to pull my hair out if I don't get far enough away from this place. My mom's just have to write me from the other side." I laughed lightly as I gave her money for gas and a cup of joe. "I need $50 on pump 3," I said, and turned a little as I heard the door jingle and another patron enter. My eyes widened as I recognized the man that I had passed on the street. "Can anyone tell me the nearest Greyhound station?" he inquired with a slight Middle Eastern dialect. "It's about 15 miles going that way," Abby replied, pointing in the direction that he was headed. My stomach sank at the thought of this man traveling that far on foot in such heat. The forecast was already in the triple digits, and it wasn't yet 9 o'clock. After a few moments of silent deliberation, I finally spoke. "Is that where you're headed? Because I'm going that way toward my class. I can give you a lift if you like." He looked at me with disregard, and I was positive that he was cursing under his breath for zooming past him not even 5 minutes ago. "If it's not too much to ask, I know you must be in a hurry," he said, with a blank look on his perfectly bronzed face. "No, not at all. Like I said, it's on my way." "Well, Abby, tell your mom we're still on for our dinner date," I said hastily, and hurried out the door before she had any time to object to the two lies I had just told. Neither was the college anywhere near the bus station, nor had I made plans to visit her mother. She was older than I, and we hung out in separate crowds. The latter was thrown in as a safety precaution, just in case my handsome companion devised any deviant plans on the way. Like my nonna used to always say, safety first. As we embarked toward our destination, he sat in quite reserved. After about 4 minutes in silence, I decided to break the ice. Hey, I'm really sorry for passing by you before, but I was going to be late for class I teach. Won't you still be late? He replied. Ignoring his snide remark, I continued. Well, my name is Rochelle, by the way. So you're catching the Greyhound? Where are you from? I asked, hoping that I would get a better response from the stranger. The South was his full response. The South, I mimicked. Of what? France, Germany, Egypt? It was evident that he was clearly not from the southern parts of the United States. He looked at me with the coolest stance and dodged all the questions that I had posed. Can we stop that I can clean up? He asked. That was a simple request, but it would put me at least 45 minutes to an hour late than I had planned. But looking at his appearance, it was impossible to deny his request. Sure, but please make it quick. As we came up to a cheap motel with its vacancy light blinking, I asked if it was decent, and with a nod of approval, we pulled into the parking lot. I left my car on idle as he went inside to pay the clerk the hourly rate and called my job to notify them of the delay and to cancel my first class. With my ordeal situated, I observed the motel aesthetics. It was one level brick building with about 10 rooms to spare. The parking lot was empty, save for my vehicle and another, which was more than likely the clerk's inside the office. I had passed this place hundreds of times on my way to work, but never gave it a second thought. It had a sort of eerie feel about it with the desert backdrop, occasional dust storm, and isolated appeal. It was fit perfectly as the basis for a slasher flick. As if on cue, my stranger friend popped up out of nowhere at the side of the driver window. Okay, we have a room now, he said, and motioned for me to abandon my seat in the car. I rolled down my window, dreaded the surge of heat that was to hit my face. I'm fine, I'll sit in my car. He raised his brow and smiled, showing a seemingly ideal set of enamels. I take long showers and really don't want you to use all your gas. Come, he said again and opened the door. I promise I will not bite. Reluctantly, I followed in pursuit, thinking to myself, had he known how I had gawked at him earlier, he should be the concerned party. I entered the threshold of the room and was pleasantly surprised to find the interior fairly decent. There was a queen size bed with floor bedspread, a dresser with a TV, and a sofa in the far corner by the only window facing the street. The decor looked to not have been updated since the late 80s, but other than that, the space was quite doable. I sank into the sofa cushioning as he fumbled through his bag, finally pulling out a white t shirt and another pair of faded jeans. My mind wandered to the discussion what I had planned for today's classes, and I found myself absent-mindedly whistling. If you are bored, please watch the television, he stated with an amused look on his face. No, I'm fine, I stated and matched his gaze. The look that he gave me communicated that he had no objection to my simple statement. As my eyes widened, his smile grew in accord, and then he turned and walked into the bathroom. My eyes followed his move until he turned the corner, and hearing the rushing of water, I averted my eyes to the scenery outside. It took a few minutes to realize the thick humidity in the air, but as I looked toward the bathroom, steam had infiltrated the area occupied by the sink in the mirror and was seeping slowly towards me. I straddled the sofa and arched my body to get a closer look, and just as I suspected, the door to the bath was ajar just a little. Before I could straighten up, I caught a glimpse of skin as he turned off the water, opened the curtain, and walked out. With a motel towel loosely draped around his lower torso, he used another one to dry off his hair, being oblivious to my gaping stance. I straightened my original position and lowered my eyes, as if reading my mind. He turned toward me, his gray eyes probing my thoughts. Instinctively, I rose and headed toward the door after realizing that he must think me crazy to still be in the only room appropriate for him to dress. After all, the bathroom had just turned into a sauna. My hands fumbled for the doorknob. Then I felt his body press against mine. His hand encircled my waist and traveled up until it reached my hands that were securely fastened to the handle. He whispered in my ear something foreign. that sent chills down my spine and caused me to surrender all defense. I arched my back toward him, pressing even further against his groin, and shut my eyes as I felt muscles tense and his hand slip under my sundress. He teased me with fingers, stroking his hands between my thighs, then finally slid my panties down. Turning me toward him, I opened my eyes again as my heart ached to see the intensity of lust and passion in his eyes. As his lips touched mine, I let out a soft moan. My hands tugged at the rest of the towel still dangling from him, exposing his swollen member. I stroked him gently and watched him as he winced in ecstasy. He was definitely ready to be released. As if responding to the request, my arms wrapped around his neck and I hoisted my legs around his taut waist. He kissed me deeper as he positioned himself to enter my dripping walls. He grunted, and with one thrust, he was inside of me. As we swayed back and forth on the motel interior, I clenched down on him to the point of tears. He fought against my resistance by thrusting even harder, sending us both into a piercing climax. I lay exhausted in his arms as he carried me to the bed and rolled me on top of him as he stretched out on the bed. He caressed my hair as my head rested upon his chest, and my eyes grew heavy from the gentle caress. They were abruptly opened as I remembered that I still had not received this man's name. Feeling a bit embarrassed but too spent to care, I softly inquired if I thought a rebuke to come forth out of his mouth at having allowed a nameless stranger to fuck my lights out. I was delighted when he burst into laughter. Raising my head to look at him, he calmly said, "Ash, now ride me." And with that, we were off again, touching, grabbing, sucking our way to multiple orgasms. When finally we were truly spent, I lay in a puddle of sweat and juices and happily drifted off to sleep with my handsome stranger by my side. As I came to, I blinked twice in astonishment. Had my eyes really just left his on the roadway? Sucking in slowly, I screeched to a halt a few feet in front of him. My cheeks burned as I blushed with the realization of the epiphany that had just laid before me. Rolling down my window, I beamed a smile and spoke. "Well, is it hot enough for you out here?" He leaned against my window pane and sweat dripped from his brow. "Yeah, I know. I could use a shower." As he crossed the street to enter my vehicle, my legs tensed with the anticipation of the events to follow. Today would definitely be one worthy of a sick leave of absence and a detour. The end.